You are listening to Level Up Your Gaming Podcast, episode 29, adding that something special to your game. Today we talk about adding a special element to an already completed game. We discuss how a small, emotional element can elevate your good game to a great game. We also discuss other things that can make a great game feel more memorable and more special. If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com. We have a lot of really fun episodes coming up down the pipeline and an interview with another GM group coming up as well. So if you'd like the content and want to hear more about that and the interview coming up, subscribing will ensure that you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, leave us a review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome into the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and in his home, sort of in quarantine-ish, he always goes the extra mile to make his games memorable. Jared, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
So, yeah, almost quarantine-ish. I'm done. I was done as of Wednesday. So, for our listeners, long story short, I was exposed to a person with COVID-19, and my test came out negative. I'm fine. I'm healthy, but they recommended that I quarantine for 5 additional days just in case I start showing symptoms. So,
Exactly. Woo! Go, Jared. I'm glad you don't have COVID, but
thank you. I'm rather lead my own self because I will tell all of our listeners this: being in quarantine by yourself, because my wife and I made the decision because both of us have mothers that are in the risk category. They could be at risk for COVID. She decided. We decided together that she would quarantine separately from me at her mother's, so in case any of our moms needed anything, Allie could go help them. But I will tell you this: being in a house by yourself, not fun. Like it's boring. It's quiet, super quiet. And it's funny, there are so many people out there that will say, like, oh man, a couple of days from my wife. Yeah. For me, I missed her the whole time. I missed her the whole time. But aside from that, I had a pretty cool thing happen to me this week. And, I told Aaron before the podcast, I wanted to talk about a little something with our listeners. And what it is it actually goes on to collaborative storytelling. It's kind of like a little add-on to it. In collaborative storytelling, sometimes you are going to need your fellow writers, your fellow storytellers, your fellow DMs and GMs and masters of ceremonies to help you out. So I've been on the road a lot. As most listeners know, I've been down in Georgia. I'm down there for 3 weeks sometimes.
If you listen to the preview of this week's episode or coming episodes, you'll understand why we didn't do a podcast last week is because Jared was on the road.
I was literally driving back from Georgia, and I will tell you this. It is incredibly difficult for me to write stories when I'm out of my element, when I'm in hotel rooms and stuff like that. Because, I don't have my chair. I've got my laptop, but I don't have my chair, my setup, my flow. There's nowhere to put my water and my tea and my vape. So it's incredibly difficult. But this week, I was talking with Aaron and I was saying, like, yeah, I finally came up with a game idea. I was going to start writing it on the Sunday that I left from Georgia because I had to leave very suddenly when we found out I was exposed. And I was like, oh, I'm not getting it down here. If I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it in Illinois, where I have my friends and my family to support me. So I drove 11 and a half hours, which cut into entire game development. I haven't had a lot of time recently. My work has definitely taken a toll on my personal time, and I've been feeling very stressed. And I have great friends, and I had Aaron, who literally I was like, well, like I'll take the first game. I'm Jared. I take the first game. And Aaron, I was like, I feel a little greedy saying that. And Aaron's like, yeah, you greedy bastard. Um,
You
in
were. You're
collaborative
being
story,
greedy.
I was being greedy. I was saying, I was slipping into old things. Well, Jared is a storyteller. Jared has a storyteller. No, this is collaborative writing. And this allows other people to take the reins from you. Stress can be a very powerful pusher on your brain, on the creative centers. It saps it. You're thinking about deadline, 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 deadline. Even game becomes a deadline. It was amazing. The minute that Aaron said, you know what, Jared, you're being greedy, you greedy bastard, I'm taking the first game. And I said, okay, that's great. The amount of stress that came off of me was absolutely amazing. I mean, just monumental amount of stress because it was like, I need to put together a game by this weekend. It's Wednesday. And to have collaborative storytelling pulled that stress off of me. Aaron's taking the game. And this, I woke up this morning, I made my coffee, I sat down, my wife wakes up way before I do. So she was already going to bed for the second time because that's what she does on Saturdays. She wakes up early, she'll eat her breakfast, and then she'll go back to bed for a few more hours. That's her version of sleeping in. So it's funny. That's what she does. Um, Me, I woke up and so she went back to bed. Um, I typed for 3 hours straight just on game stuff and was having a blast writing again because there wasn't that stress pounding down. It wasn't a deadline. I was writing for fun and for excitement. And I was like, oh my God, like ba 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 ba. And it was just hitting perfectly. And so I guess the little add-on to collaborative storytelling is that collaborative storytelling, why I so strongly recommend it, is because you now have a support system even in game. Just like we all need support systems in life, we have our wives, our girlfriends, our boyfriends, our family, our mothers, our dads, yada yada. Uh, and at work, you have your coworkers that can help you out on certain projects. Gaming, when you start doing that collaborative piece, suddenly you have that support network. Sometimes when the rain is just coming down on you, when you have that collaborative base established, bam, you can watch that come together. And it was really something special. It was very amazing just to feel the stress come off and feel the creativity just seep back into me. And so it was just something special I wanted to share with all of you, that I had that moment, and to thank Aaron publicly for doing that, for
Well, you're welcome.
for putting the check and taking that, because now I can be creative again. And I just had a blast this morning. 3 hours straight. I didn't move out of my freaking chair for 3 hours. Just, I mean, I was typing like a madman. And in case anyone's wondering, like, man, what do you type for 3 hours? The opening narrative. The opening narrative is key, folks. Key.
Go back to The Gathering, episode 1. Learn it.
Episode 1, Gathering. Then music. You got to make sure your music's timed. Does it hit? Does it hit at key points? Do you have the right music? And then I found some music that was fantastic. The problem is that I guess the second movement of the music didn't go the way I wanted it to. So what did I need to do? I need to grab an audio converter. I converted it from an MP4 to a wave, and then I took the wave and I put it in Audacity. And I clipped out that second movement so it just repeats at the perfect moment. It just keeps going.
How ironic that you did that. I did the very same thing today. I actually went into Audacity. I clipped a piece of music to get it to repeat on the bit I wanted it to repeat on.
Yeah, and suddenly the music becomes pure, exactly what you're looking for. And it just takes a little bit of manipulation. All of that 3 hours was designated just to the opening scene. That's the level of detail that comes into place, which brings us back to today's point, bringing that something special.
Exactly. That's the episode topic. You're adding that something special to your game, and well played. Thank you for the public thank you. I guess I
It was a
appreciate it.
thank you card.
It was a nice thank you card out there. I felt again it doesn't matter who starts this game. It doesn't matter who ends this game. It's gonna be it's our game. So it's still our game universe. That's in Jared's right in that regard. And you've got other GMs who have stories in the wings. So Brian has a one shot, Ken has something that's like 1 or 2 game thing, and you've got plenty of people who have storytellers who have games ready for you to go. So, but hopefully you'll have fun tonight when I tell my story.
I'm waiting. I can't wait. I'm very excited.
I did write it all around this one kind of game, this one clip that I had playing and repeat. So it was
playing and repeat. I'm telling you,
it's not a bad way to write a game there.
No, it helps you establish that theme. You keep laughing. What is my face? What is my beard messed up?
No. I'm laughing because I'm having a good time. I haven't done the pod with you here in
I know it's been a minute.
But I'm gonna pull us back on topic here, which is that adding that something special to your game, and that's actually sort of what I was trying to go for tonight, because my game isn't supposed to be this long overarching game, and really what I could do is I could cookie cutter any of the games that I've done prior to this. You can cookie cutter, you could come up with the formula that sort of works. I mean, you look at a well-running TV show, long-running TV show, Bones. There's a killer every week. Okay, House. Here's a new medical mystery every week. How do you make the entirety of the game though special? What do you do to make it special and not make it formulaic, where it's just the same thing that happens every week? And that's what I wanted to talk about today, and actually what I got to experience here today. I'm trying to give it that flair of something special. Maybe you're trying to pack in an emotional punch at the end of the game. Maybe you're trying to create a new villain in the game. I know that you do this with every game. You try to push the boundaries with every game that you do, Jared. So
I do.
What are your thoughts on this?
So, adding something special. Here's what I generally do. So first, I'm going to give you some tools for your toolbox. Drop them in there. Step number 1: create your game. Build your story, build your timelines, enhance your music. Make sure you've got it. When I think of it like baking a cake, I make sure that I've got the cake with frosting on it, and maybe happy birthday. That's what I've got. It was fun factoid. It was my mother's 70th birthday yesterday, so
happy birthday to your mother.
Thank you. I'll call her and let her know. For our listeners, my mom has known Aaron since we were small, since swimming lessons. So, but you're gonna put happy birthday on there, and boom, the cake is done. It is satisfying. It's sugary. It's delicious. It's a good cake. That's all I'm gonna make sure of first. Once I've got my cake, that's when I add the special details. And that's when you start adding, okay, let's put a rose over here. Let's add a cherry to the top. Let's do a nice little fringe around the top of the cake. So you start adding these details, because one part to a larger series of games, just one extra detail, one cool moment can really amplify that entire game in the minds of your players. Maybe it's creating an authentic document. So let's take, for example, maybe a space-bound game, right? Because I want to do some sci-fi. I feel I've been lacking out on you sci-fi fans out there. So let's take the just one authentic piece of information. So let's say your mission is to transfer, a Sith holocron. I guess I don't
know what they're called, Jared, but sure, go with that.
And from one end to the other end. Now, a lot of people are going to say, okay, create the holocron, create a cylinder, get some. And for you artsy craftsy people who might want to do that, go for it. My thing is I'm not a prop guy. I don't like props. They just I feel like they just sit there. Unless you're at LARP. If you're doing live action role playing, props just they can really amplify something. You know, a message from the prince. Oh my gosh, we gotta get this. Trust me, you have one prop, people will just scramble for it. But um, so much as maybe creating taking paint and putting it on black and using red lettering and trying to create an authentic looking document. Many D&D players do it with scrolls. They'll take a piece of paper, they'll roll it up, and they'll use special handwriting tools or whatever. I've done that where I've taken like a scroll and I've burned it on both ends. I lit it on fire and I tied a little birthday ribbon around it. It's small details like that definitely give the game some pop. But it's the substance of it. It's how much it's going to affect your players. What kind of impact is it going to have on them emotionally? Remember, we've talked about the art of storytelling is really the art of emotional manipulation. So I focus more on a special scene where I combined music with some sort of narrative with player action. I create a really well crafted scene. And the best example I have of this was during our game that was called Red Lake. It's where my players went up against Wendigo during our investigation game. Because I had really had the cake done. I mean, like this game was done from beginning to end. Nothing else was required. I could have run that game and not typed a note. It was so well done. The cake was so solid. But because I had that extra time, I created a scene. And the scene had, 4 different pieces of music. The players were chasing after a person who there was a bad guy in town. The town doctor was like, I'm going to get this bad guy before he kills the heroes. And he went out on his own to try to kill the bad guy. He ended up getting killed. But the heroes were chasing after him, trying to get to him before he got to the bad guy. Unfortunately, they never could. Why? Because GM magic. He was long dead before the players even got there. Oh, goodness. Sorry, a sip of tea right there. Adding that little scene, I believe, amplified Red Lake to a level where even I myself say that was probably the best game I've ever done. That was probably the best game I did. And I can't say it's that scene, but that scene amplified it so much, that whole game.
There was a lot about that game that made it very good, and it was probably just how tight the game was, but that scene took the game from being a good game to a great game. It was like that's what the Something Special sort of does, is it takes something from good to great. Like players will have a lot of good games that you'll tell. If you tell really compacted games that are tight and they're well thought out, they're well crafted, they're not a long campaign. They'll go from good to great. It's the same thing that happened with our big campaign, Elders. Okay. Mm-hmm. The reason why Elders was so great, okay, not just good, is one, you had a very good story all the way through it. Okay, and you lopped off moments of it that the game got that dragged on, but the game had so many points of that were to that scene. They weren't crafted as well as that scene because there was an earlier game,
right?
And you've evolved in your storytelling. You've become better at crafting the scenes, but you had so many good scenes in that game. There was so much player agency in that game to do what they wanted to do, and they created memories. And then the thing that just capped it off, and the thing that I still to this day makes it definitely top 3 game, Mount Rushmore of your games, is the ending of it when we finished it. I don't think the final battle was particularly epic and grand at the end of it. I thought the way that the way that Brian took down the final kind of bad guy was poetic.
because it was the same way that he defeated him in a duel earlier in the
Yep.
game. But it was the epilogue at the end of the game. You won. It was the first time that we ever had a real ending to the game, and then there was just this beautiful epilogue at the end of the game that touched on all these moments throughout the game. That's what made it so special. Like it was just that.
It brought something special. It was a special scene. It's a scene where, for these guys, it was emotional because of memories. With Red Lake, it was emotional because of, again, that was a memory striking moment, because it had to deal with emotions. Emotions really, I think, are the strongest factor in adding something special, is taking one scene and creating an emotionally powerful moment. Whether or not that be an emotionally powerful moment in, you got to choose the emotion. Is it going to be a terrifying moment? Do you want to create one scene that just scares the poop out of your players? And you focus hardcore on that. Now remember, your cake is made. You've got the rest of it. That's the trick to it. You got to have the cake made. You can have plans for your game. You can have plans. You can say, okay, I want to make an emotional moment. Make your cake first. Make that foundation, and then start putting on the really cool stuff.
It's a really good point. I mean, I just want to really point that out. Like, if your game is not made, if your game is not good, the thing that makes it special will not make it great. It will just be another thing that's in this sort of bland cake.
Exactly. So you're going to take that mediocre time, or where you've got the cake, it's made, but you don't have any frosting on it. Take that time, instead of focusing on one rose, and then you've got a whole cake of just cake without any frosting, which, I mean, for me is delicious. I'm weird though. I like the bread part of cake. It's weird. I could eat whole cake without any frosting. But if you got this beautiful little rose that you just created in the corner of an otherwise bread cake, people are going to be like, it doesn't even say happy birthday. Bland moment. And only, you might get some people who get that rose and like, wow, that rose was pretty decorative, but it's still just, it's not there. It's after that you've created the foundation. So take that time that you would putting into that, creating that detailed rose or that detailed flower at the corner of the cake, and put it into just frosting the cake. So you take it from mediocre to good. It's a good, solid cake. And then if there's time later, you can go back and create. Because, we talked about maintenance periods during your maintenance time. Because if you have a good, solid cake, maintenance might be an hour a week. That's it. You're just making sure things are right. But you can now take that hour, and if you're like, I got some extra time on my hands today, why not make a rose on that cake?
That's how you craft that special moment that Jared spoke about. Like, oh, I got time to add this ornate rose that I created here. It's still a good cake. It's just now looks prettier, and it looks better, and it hits better at the end of it. I think Jared actually hit it really, really well, in terms of how to kind of describe what that special something is. I think typically what you're trying to do is you're trying to drive home an emotional impact. You're trying to get that moment where at the end of your game session that night, you sit there and you're like, your players are just going nuts. They're like, they're loving every minute. They're like, oh my God, this is so good. Or they're talking about it with you, throughout the week, waiting for their next game session. And again, it just takes your game and elevates it. It's like, we've referenced this before, like if you had an unsalted piece of meat and then you put salt on it, it's just like, oh my God, like this is life-changing.
This is amazing. Chicken goes from just like it's chicken to, oh my God, this is freaking amazing. So adding that something special, because I can tell you this, the propage does help. It can amplify games, especially if you create a game where the props can be sort of taken home. So one game that I did, which was kind of funny because the propage was really great, but the story had nothing to do with the props. So my first game of the detective series was actually a shootout with a bunch of rednecks. Sorry for anyone in the South. I apologize for the derogatory term, but um, a bunch of clannish, meth dealing, incestuous family on this island. It was just a long shootout. It was like a 3 or 4 session shootout. You know, but prior to that, for the weeks leading up to the shootout, I was sending out documents because the characters, the original premise of the investigators going to the island was actually insurance fraud. The insurance company was sending investigators to investigate if this guy really had broken his leg or whatever it was. And they were sending investigators, but, you know, they had read the criminal, they were going to send their regular investigator, but the criminal reports of these people carrying guns and possibly making meth, the investigator was like, you should call these guys instead. They have guns. So they were recommended, and they come to this island. But for weeks I was putting out these documents, and I heard that one of our friends was like reading these documents to identify inconsistencies and like going through them thinking that it would be a key.
He spent hours doing that. Hours looking over these documents. He had inconsistencies. He thought this was an inside job. I mean, like
it was awesome. It was awesome. And for him, it burned in his memory because he got really excited about the props. So there was some success with making props because I made police reports. I made fake emails. I made fake medical reports, fake receipts. I think there was a receipt that was like 6 pages in length. You know, and so propage has really good, sometimes good results. But again, the focus to really make something truly special is how much emotional impact it has. Now, that's not to say if you have time to create a box of props, multiple props that have real meaning to the story. So this is where I go against I'm going to make a version of the holocron. I'm going to take a paper towel roll and spray paint and do all the crafty things that some people have the awesome capability to do. How much meaning does that have? You know, does it have a screw cap or some sort of locking mechanism where the players can accidentally unlock it and find that there's a message inside the tube? You know, and then they pull it out and it changes the game. How does it affect in-game play? So if you're going to have a prop, make sure that prop that you think is going to be special needs to affect in-game play. It can't just be something your players are going to throw about their hands the entire time and go, I got silver spray paint all over my hands. It can't be that. It has to be effective to in-game play. So documents are fantastic. Real life medical reports for an investigation game, technical schematics, you know, Star Wars, we've got to disable this bomb. Maybe having a real life like planogram, like almost like a maze that they got to figure out with this schematic. You know, add those things, but remember to make those foundations first, then go on to all that cool stuff, because I fall into that pit a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're just going to put together like a puzzle that you have to solve outside of the game or something like that, it might not have the impact that you're looking for. I think actually it's a clever thing to have, which is if your prop, it doubles as something else, where like if for some reason like you have invisible ink on like a message or something, and when you turn it over, you can actually burn out and see the invisible ink or something like that.
Which I've actually done in the past.
Yes, you have.
An easy thing for invisible ink, lemon juice. It's actually how we used to transfer messages during the Revolutionary War. Fun fact of history. History with Jared. Just think my students had that for years. History with Jared.
But it's
yeah, they did.
But there's a lot of ways that you can make a game emotionally cool. Again, it could be in your world design, or the design of your your map. Let's say if you're really intricately drawn map as part of your scene, and somebody notices something on the map and they decide to take a look at it. Like
yes,
that can feel very rewarding. Like that's the other thing that makes a game special is the reward at the end of it. It's not just the emotional payoff, but maybe like I figured it out. Like we got this. Like there's the leaps that the players made it feel really impactful and whatnot. And then you, like I said, Jared said, again, you got to build that cake. It's got to be a cake. It can't be a pie. Or it can't be, like if people are expecting a cake and you deliver a
plate of cookies.
Danish, like a Danish is good. It's not
Love
the cake
Danish.
that you promise.
Love Danish. I mean, like I asked for a cake, you brought me a Danish. Well done.
Well, you
well
passed
done.
the test.
You passed the test. Except actually, the funny thing is, I am more of a pie guy. I prefer pie over cake.
I know,
but it's only one kind of pie. One kind of pie. Strawberry rhubarb. Amazing pie. But back to leveling up your gaming. Pies with Jared.
Leveling up your pie game with Jared.
Leveling up your pie game. So, really focus on those things. I find music to be the first step whenever I try to create something special. Sometimes leaving little clues makes the thing special. And we talked about that with collaborative storytelling, leaving breadcrumbs for something bigger. Trust me, there's an emotional payoff to I discovered something a little cool, a little just something about this NPC. Notice that he has blue eyes. And then some months later, the players also discover another person with strangely blue eyes. And then they start following down that road, where they find out it's, a breeding cult or whatever.
Connecting obscure details is always a special moment when you're like, oh my God, it was.
Oh my God. Some of the things that you can do to create also special moments is just preparing. So one, the final thing I want to kind of touch on is combat can also actually create special moments. If you are preparing for a combat, you know what's coming. Combats you can see a mile down the road. Like I'm gonna have these bandits jump the players. Prepare for those descriptive moments. Now, if you're somebody who adds already a lot of description into their combat scenes, what you can do is, for example, what I've done is like it moves in slow motion. You see as the blade cuts through the neck of the goblin, slowly you see the blood spurt and spatter. You can do kind of slow motionish. I prefer to focus on the Michael Bay aspect of things blowing up, because guns, we run mostly modern games, and guns are so destructive, and people don't understand how much debris is created from a shotgun going through drywall. I mean, it's pretty impressive. So, add the extra description of the drywall, the smoke from the drywall filling the room. Even if that's not how it happens in physics, go for it. Be Michael Bay. But I guess the final thought that I would leave with player or storytellers, GMs, the whole 9 yards is that, focus on my best tool is music, is creating those masterpieces with that music. Make sure that you've got an accompaniment. Make sure that it's well thought out and well planned. Even if you don't have access to music, maybe burn a CD and bring down the CD player. And, it's going to bring something special. So, just adds a little thing.
Music is always impactful in a moment. It does add something more to a game. If your game has never had music before and you put music into it, that game might be very, very special if it's a good game.
Yep. Oh, and if you've never done music before, find a friend, test out your music system before game night, because that's the last thing you want is prepare for music, and you hit the play button, nothing happens.
Particularly if you're dealing with like over the online stuff and whatnot. You can go back to our music and atmosphere episode somewhere around like episode 12 or something like that. And we talk a good amount about adding music to the game and what that can bring to the game itself. But again, like I said, Jared, make sure that your technical kinks are worked out. Nothing worse than a technical problem when you're trying to generate.
Nothing worse. It is the worst. So yes. That's what I've got.
Well, I think that actually ties us up with a nice little bow there. Again, trying to add that something special to your cake. Just add that little extra something after you've put together your game. But since Jared doesn't have anything else, I don't have anything else. We'll go into the closing spiel here. If you like the episode, please subscribe, review, tell a friend. You can give us feedback at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com. And also, we have a lot of really cool episodes coming up. We're going to be doing an interview with a couple of guys from a different podcast in a couple of episodes. So keep your eyes peeled for that. If you'd like to get some different GM tips other than Jared and myself. We also have a special guest coming up in a different episode.
Yes, we do.
A couple episodes from now as well. So just kind of keep yourself peeled to this. Make sure you're subscribed so you get all that cool stuff coming down the pipeline. But for Jared, I'm Aaron. Have a good week, guys.
Have a great week, everyone.